Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Harinam Mantra ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu ki, Gaura Premanande. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing our reading of the 6th canto at the 9th chapter, the appearance of the demon Vritrasura, taking up at text number 41. O Supreme Protector, O Grandfather, O Supreme Pure, O Lord, we are all surrendered souls at your lotus feet. Indeed, our minds are bound to your lotus feet in meditation by chains of love. Now please manifest your incarnation, accepting us as your own eternal servants and devotees. Be pleased with us and sympathetic towards us. By your love-filled glance, with its cool and pleasing smile of sympathy, and by the sweet nectarian words emanating from your beautiful face, free us from the anxiety caused by this Vritrasura who always pains the cores of our hearts. Purport: Lord Brahma is considered the father of the demigods, but Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, is the father of Brahma, because Brahma took birth from the lotus flower growing from the Lord's abdomen. O Lord, as the small sparks of a fire cannot possibly perform the actions of the whole fire, we sparks of your Lordship cannot inform you of the necessities of our lives. You are the complete whole. Therefore, of what do we need to inform you? You know everything because you are the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, the maintainer and the annihilator of the entire universal creation. You always engage in your pastimes with your spiritual and material energies, for you are the controller of all these varied energies. You exist within all living entities, within the cosmic manifestation and also beyond them. You exist internally as Parabrahman and externally as the ingredients of the material creation. Therefore, although manifested in various stages, at different times and places, and in various bodies, you, the personality of Godhead, are the original cause of all causes. Indeed, you are the original element. You are the witness of all activities. But because you are as great as the sky, you are never touched by any of them. You are the witness of everything as Parabrahman and Paramatma. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, nothing is unknown to you. Purport: the Absolute Truth exists in three phases of spiritual understanding: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdite. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of Brahman and Paramatma. Brahman, the impersonal Absolute Truth, is all-pervading, and Paramatma is locally situated in everyone's heart. But Bhagavan, who is worshipable by the devotees, is the original cause of all causes. A pure devotee is aware that since nothing is unknown to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he need not be informed of the devotee's conveniences and inconveniences. A pure devotee knows that there is no need to ask the Absolute Truth for any material necessities. Therefore, while informing the Supreme Lord about their distress in being attacked by Vritrasura, the demigods apologize for offering prayers for their safety. A neophyte devotee, of course, approaches the Supreme Lord for relief from distress or poverty, or for speculative knowledge of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita 7:16 mentions four kinds of pious men who begin devotional service to the Lord: one who is distressed, arta; one in need of money, artarti; and one who is inquisitive, jignasu; and one who is searching for the Absolute Truth, jnani. A pure devotee, however, knows that since the Lord is omnipresent and omniscient, there is no need to offer prayers or worship Him for one's personal benefit. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord without demanding anything. The Lord is present everywhere and knows the necessities of His devotees. Consequently, there is no need to disturb Him by asking Him for material benefits. Although I miss a mention of what Prabhupada said when he came to America and he had an impossible duty of spreading Krishna consciousness all by himself all over the world. And he said, if you're given an impossible task and you don't know what to do, he said you should pray to the Lord and say, how can I do, how can I do, how can I do? And Advaita Acharya prayed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come down and help the Sankirtan movement like I need help. 43. Dear Lord, you are omniscient and therefore you know very well why we have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which provide shade that gives relief from all material disturbances. Since you are the Supreme Spiritual Master and you know everything, we have sought shelter of your lotus feet for instruction. Please give us relief by counteracting our present distress. Your lotus feet are the only shelter for a fully surrendered devotee and are the only means for subduing all the tribulations of this material world. Purport: one need only seek shelter of the shade of the Lord's lotus feet. Then all the material tribulations that disturb him will be subdued, just as when one comes under the shadow of a big tree, the disturbances caused by the heat of the scorching sun are immediately mitigated without one's asking for relief. Therefore, the whole concern of the conditioned soul should be the lotus feet of the Lord. The conditioned soul suffering from various tribulations because of existing in this material world can be relieved only when he seeks shelter at the shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. 44. Therefore, O Lord, O Supreme Controller, O Lord Krishna, please annihilate this dangerous demon Vritrasura, Twashta's son, who has already swallowed all our weapons, our paraphernalia for fighting, and our strength and influence. Purport, the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7:15 through 16, Namam duskritinu muda prapadyante naradama mayaya pratagyana asuram pavamashita chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasa artarti jnani cha bharatarshava. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. O best among the Bharatas, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. The 4 classes of neophyte devotees who approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to offer devotional service because of material motives are not pure devotees. But the advantage for such materialistic devotees is that they sometimes give up their material desires and become pure. When the demigods are utterly helpless, they approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in grief and with tears in their eyes, praying to the Lord, and thus they become almost pure devotees, free from material desires. Admitting that they have forgotten pure devotional service because of extensive material opportunities, they fully surrender to the Lord, leaving to his consideration whether to maintain them or annihilate them. Such surrender is necessary. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Maro viraga viyo icha tohara. O Lord, I fully surrender unto your lotus feet. Now, as you desire, you may protect me or annihilate me. You have the full right to do either. 45. O Lord, O Supreme Pure, you live within the core of everyone's heart and observe all the desires and activities of the conditioned souls. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Lord Krishna, your reputation is bright and illuminating. You have no beginning, for you are the beginning of everything. This is understood by pure devotees because you are easily accessible to the pure and truthful. When the conditioned souls are liberated and sheltered at your lotus feet after roving throughout the material world for many millions of years, they attain the highest success of life. Therefore, O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we offer our respectful obeisances at your lotus feet. Purport. The demigods certainly wanted Lord Vishnu to relieve their anxiety, but now they directly approach Lord Krishna, for although there is no difference between Lord Krishna and Lord Vishnu, Krishna descends to this planet in his Vasudeva feature for the purpose of paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam, protecting his devotees and annihilating the miscreants. Demons or atheists always disturb the demigods or devotees, and therefore Krishna descends to punish the atheists and demons and fulfill the desire of his devotees. Krishna, being the original cause of everything, is the Supreme Person, above even Vishnu and Narayana, although there is no difference between these different forms of the Lord. As explained in Brahma Samhita 546, Deeparchereva hidashantanamabhyapetya Deepayate vravrita hetu samana dharma Yastadrageva hicha vishnu taya vibhati Govindamadi purusham dhammaham bhajami. Krishna expands himself as Vishnu the way a bright candle kindles another. Although there is no difference between the power of one candle and another, Krishna is compared to the original candle. The word mrishta yashase is significant herein because Krishna is always famous for relieving his devotees from danger. A devotee who has sacrificed everything for the service of Krishna and whose only source of relief is the Lord is known as akinchana. As expressed in the prayers offered by Queen Kunti, the Lord is a kinchana vita, the property of such a devotee. Those who are liberated from the bondage of conditioned life are elevated to the spiritual world, where they achieve 5 kinds of liberation: Sayuja, Salokya, Sarupya, Sarshti, and Samipya. They personally associate with the Lord in 5 mellows: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. These rasas are all emanations from Krishna. as described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The original mellow, Adiras, is conjugal love. Krishna is the origin of pure spiritual conjugal love. Yes, sir.
It's probably a little elementary, but I've heard different answers on this, and I wondered if you could just give.
I couldn't understand what you just said.
He said that sometimes people say what he's about to ask is elementary.
Yeah, and I've heard different answers on it.
He'd heard different answers. He'd like to ask more, like directly in this assembly.
You're such a good translator.
Thank you.
He thanks you.
I got my point across.
So Jignasu and Jnani, the difference between the two. Could you give your...
Well, in the commentaries by the difference between the Jnani and the Jignasu. The one searching for knowledge of the Absolute, and one in knowledge of the Absolute. Jignasu means?
Inquisitive.
Yeah, inquisitive and searching for the Absolute. So, in the commentaries, it's mentioned that Tesham Gyani Nityukta Eka Bhakti Vishishite Priyohi Gyani No Tyartamaham Sacham Raman Priya. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, and concurs with Baladev Bijabhushan, that they're in knowledge of, means when they say, when it says that they're in knowledge, they already have a sense of pure devotional service. Yeah.
It's Gyani.
Yeah, but in other words, he's differentiating between an ordinary Gyani, because he says that this kind of Gyani means somebody who's, he knows about devotional service. He's not inquiring about anything that's separate from the Lord.
Whereas the Jignasu is more just curious about things in general.
He's searching, but he hasn't come to he doesn't have a sense, of absolute truth. There's a place here where in Prabhupada's purport to those verses you were chanting. We'll just look it up real quick.
So would it be... Should I get them?
What verse? What chapter is that? That's it.
Okay.
The answer I heard is that the Jnani, he knows he's not the body, and the Jigyasu, he doesn't.
That's one difference, definitely.
He knows the difference between the body and the soul.
I heard once that the Jigyasi only wants to know how does that function in the temple, how do they earn money, and how do they pay all this, and he's just neugierig, curious.
May I submit some evidence from Srila Prabhupada himself? Thank you. This is the verse that you just... Udara sarva evaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam astitak sahiyuktatma mameva anutamam katim. This is explaining... Shut up. So this is explaining how it is that the jnani is considered the uttamam gatim, better than the others, although all of those, according to the last verse, udarak, they're all magnanimous. But the jnani, he considers better. Why? And here it is, the answer. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Purport. It is not that devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all are magnanimous, because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma, or great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because there is an exchange of affection. Out of affection, they ask the Lord for some material benefit, and when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in the devotional service. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord says, Sadhavo hridayam mayam, sadhunam hridayam tvaham, madanyat te najananti, naham te byo madag api. The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. The devotee who does not know anything beyond me, and I cannot forget the devotee. There's a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees are full knowledge, are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they're very much dear to me. Now, one thing he did say, that I know that doesn't actually answer the question completely, but the previous purport does. Here he says, free from all contaminations of material desires, the distressed, the inquisitive, the penniless, and the seeker after supreme knowledge can all become pure devotees. But out of them, are we still here? Are we with me? But out of them, he who is in knowledge of the absolute truth and free from all material desires becomes a really pure devotee of the Lord, confirming what somebody else said. And out of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and is at the same time engaged in devotional service is, the Lord says, the best. By searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body, confirming whatever somebody else said. And when further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of impersonal Brahmana Paramatma. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of God. So by association with pure devotees, the inquisitive, the distressed, seeker after material amelioration, and the man in knowledge all become themselves pure. But in the preparatory stage, the man who is in full knowledge of the Supreme Lord and is at the same time executing devotional service is very dear to the Lord. He who is situated in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so protected in devotional service that material contamination cannot touch him. So I take from that he has a sense, that Krishna is God.
Jnana Mishra Bhakti?
Yeah.
Instead of Karma Mishra Bhakti?
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. No. Is it my turn? Oh, please. If you don't, I won't.
This is from the Srila Baladev Vidyabhusan commentary. 4 types of religious persons worship me, O Arjuna: the sufferer, the inquirer, the enjoyer, and the jnani. Commentary: then who surrenders to you? Those who are actually learned, Sukritina, who engage in their designated activities according to Varnashram and have love for me alone, worship me. And there's a footnote here that says, it would appear that these 4 types are neither parinishta devotees nor sanishta devotees, but they progress after many births to being parinishta devotees. There are 4 types. Some are afflicted by disaster, artha, such as pain from enemies. They desire to eliminate that suffering. Gajendra is an example of this type. Others desire knowledge of the nature of Atma, distinct from the body, Jignasu. Shaunaka is an example of this type. Others desire wealth, such as kingdom, Artarti. Dhruvan is an example of this type. The Jnani already knows his self as Atma, the part, Shesha, and me as Paramatma, the shelter of the part, Sheshi. Hey, Sheshi. Shuka is an example of this type. Of these, the first three are called Sakama, having desires. The Jnani, however, is Nishkama, without desire. Everything okay? Keep going. The inquisitive type is placed between the sufferer and the desire of wealth in the sequence in the verse because of hope that these two types will develop inquisitiveness in the future. Of these four types, the Jnani, who is constantly engaged in thinking of me, who is practicing pure bhakti, is the best. This Jnani loves only me, and I love only him. Purport, commentary. Among these four, the Jnani is considered the best. He is the best because he is Nitya Yukta and Eka Bhakti. Having given up desires such as getting relief from suffering, getting wealth, or getting knowledge of Atma, he is serving me constantly, Nitya Yukta. The others engage in service as long as they attain their desires. The Jnani has unmotivated devotion only to me, Eka Bhakti. The others engage in devotion to me because I fulfill their desires. Therefore, the Jnani is the best. I am the object of love for the Jnani. He, immersed in the nectar ocean of love for me, does not seek anything else. The word atyarta, excessively, indicates that he limits himself only to love of me, since I am endowed with qualities like omniscience and unlimited powers, which no one can completely describe. And this Jnani is the object of affection for me, according to the rule, ye yata amam prapadyante. As they surrender to me, I respond accordingly. I also am limited to loving only him. Then Uttaraksara Evaite. They are all exalted, but the Jnani is my soul, because he remains firmly fixed in devotion to me, taking me as the highest goal. That is my opinion. Commentary. Then the first three types of worshippers do not have affection for you? No, this is not so. I have said that the Jnani holds me exceedingly dear. They are all generous in giving me love, udara. Amarakosh says that udara means generous or great. They who, worshipping me, receive from me the objects of their material desires, which I desire to give, generously offer to me their affection as a devotee. Certainly, I also hold dear those persons who give so much to me. The Jnani, however, is my very life and soul. That is my opinion. This is because that Jnani, has offered his mind to me, yukta ba, without desiring anything else other than me. He is unable to remain even for a fraction of a second without me because of his extreme affection. He remains firmly convinced, astitaha, that I alone am the highest object to be achieved. Anutamam gatim. I also cannot remain for a fraction of a second without such a person. In that way, he is my very Atma. One cannot propose that in this verse the Lord says that he is non-different from the jiva who has become a Jnani, because this is not the goal of worship for this Jnani. As well, there are no statements showing this result for any of the four types of worshippers. As well, there are contrary statements made elsewhere of difference between jiva and the Lord, even in the state of liberation. The Jnani is called my Atma only because of my extreme affection for him. This is similar to saying out of affection, Bhadrasena is my very self. Others say that Atma means mind, in this case, in this verse. In that case, the sentence would mean, my mind thinks of him constantly. Prabhu?
I came in a little bit late. What was that part where it was saying that the way that they're situated in the verse, that two are situated before one, and therefore it indicates something? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was saying like these two are situated before this one, and that indicates.
The inquisitive one is situated between the sufferer and the desire of wealth and the one in knowledge, because there is a hope that
Exactly.
the former two will become a little inquisitive by suffering and by trying to acquire wealth, and eventually a little bit of inquisitiveness will set in. So it's in between stage.
Well heard.
And then the one who is in knowledge is
Well heard and
much more better.
Well heard and well said. Naveen, well heard and well said. There's also a verse that's very important in this regard, and that is, there's two of them. One of them is Nahi Gyani Nisadvisham. Nahi Gyani Nisadvisham Pavitram Iha Vidyate Tatsoyam Yugasansida Kalinat Mani Vindati. That there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. And then the verse after that, Shreyan Mayad, the one just before Tadvidi Panipatina. What's that? Shreyad, so, Gyani Parisamarpana. There it says that service performed with knowledge is better than service performed just for giving up possessions and material attachments. That fits into that, what he said. Huh? It's there. Either that or somebody's told it. Didn't you have that before? What canto you're looking for?
I was looking for the commentary from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, it's there. Left hand side on the bottom.
Where the other search Darshini was?
Yeah, or in that area. It's there.
I just saw Bhagavatam commentary.
It's there. Either that or somebody stole it. Could be. I found 2 missing books so far. Yeah, I found 2. I found that there was 2 missing books. I found that 2 books were missing.
They turned up missing.
No, I found they didn't turn up. It's an old saying. Oh, here's a new saying. 46. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, O King Parikshit, when the demigods offered the Lord their sincere prayers in this way, the Lord listened by his causeless mercy. Being pleased, he then replied to the demigods. Text 47. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O beloved demigods, you have offered your prayers to me with great knowledge, and I am certainly most pleased with you. A person is liberated by such knowledge, and thus he remembers my exalted position, which is above the conditions of material life. Such a devotee is fully purified by offering prayers in full knowledge. This is the source of devotional service to me. Purport. Another name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Uttama Shloka, which means that he has offered prayers with selected verses. Bhakti means Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, chanting and hearing about Lord Vishnu. Impersonalists cannot be purified, for they do not offer personal prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though they sometimes offer prayers, the prayers are not directed toward the Supreme Person. Impersonalists sometimes show their incomplete knowledge by addressing the Lord as being nameless. They always offer prayers indirectly, saying, "You are this, you are that," but they do not know to whom they are praying. A devotee, however, always offers personal prayers. A devotee says, "Govindam, Adipurusham, Tamaham Bhajami." I offer my respectful obeisances unto Govinda, unto Krishna. That is the way to offer prayers. If one continues to offer such personal prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is eligible to become a pure devotee and return home back to Godhead. Text 48. O best of the intelligent demigods, although it is true that nothing is difficult for one to obtain when I am pleased with him, a pure devotee, whose mind is exclusively fixed upon me, does not ask me for anything but the opportunity to engage in devotional service. So he's chastising them, basically, telling them what's wrong with them. Purport. When the demigods finished offering their prayers, they anxiously waited for their enemy Vritrasura to be killed. This means that the demigods are not pure devotees. Although without difficulty one can get anything he desires if the Lord is pleased, the demigods aspire for material profit by pleasing the Lord. The Lord wanted the demigods to pray for unalloyed devotional service, but instead they prayed for an opportunity to kill their enemy. This is the difference between a devotee and a devotee on the material platform. Indirectly, the Lord regretted that the demigods did not ask for pure devotional service. Text 49. Those who think material assets to be everything, or to be the ultimate goal of life, are called misers, kripanas. They do not know the ultimate necessity of the soul. Moreover, if one awards that which is desired by such fools, he must also be considered foolish. I'll read that again. Moreover, if one awards that which is desired by such fools, he must also be considered foolish. Purport. There are two classes of men, named the Kripana and the Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who knows Brahman, the absolute truth, and who thus knows his real interest. A Kripana, however, is one who has a material bodily concept of life. Not knowing how to utilize his human or demigod life, a Kripana is attracted by things created by the material modes of nature. The Kripanas, who always desire material benefits, are foolish, whereas Brahmanas, who always desire spiritual benefits, are intelligent. If a Kripana, not knowing his self-interest, foolishly asks for something material, one who awards it to him is also foolish. Krishna, however, is not a foolish person. He is supremely intelligent. If someone comes to Krishna asking for material benefits, Krishna does not award him the material things he desires. Instead, the Lord gives him intelligence so that he will forget his material desires and become attached to the Lord's lotus feet. In such cases, although the Kripana offers prayers to the Lord for material things, the Lord takes away whatever material possessions the Kripana has and gives him the sense to become a devotee. As stated by the Lord in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Amibhigya e murke vishaya keni diva swa charanamrita diya vishaya vulaiba. Since I am very intelligent, why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. If one sincerely prays to God for material possessions in exchange for devotional service, the Lord, who is not foolish like such an unintelligent devotee, shows him special favor by taking away whatever material possessions he has and gradually giving him the intelligence to be satisfied only by rendering service to his lotus feet. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this regard that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this regard that if a foolish child requests his mother to give him poison, the mother, being intelligent, will certainly not give him poison, even though he requests it. With us? Everybody? With us? A materialist, I'll read that again, just in case. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this regard that if a foolish child requests his mother to give him poison, the mother, being intelligent, will certainly not give him poison, even though he requests it. A materialist, don't mock me. A materialist does not know that to accept material possessions means to accept poison or the repetition of birth and death. An intelligent person, a brahmana, aspires for liberation from material bondage. That is the real self-interest of a human being. Text 50. May I? 50. Te 50? 50. A pure devotee who is fully accomplished in the science of devotional service will never instruct a foolish person to engage in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, not to speak of helping him in such activities. Such a devotee is like an inexperienced physician who never encourages a patient to eat to his health, even if the patient desires it. Purport. Here is the difference between the benedictions awarded by the demigods and those awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Devotees of the demigods ask for benedictions simply for sense gratification, and therefore they have been described in Bhagavad Gita 7:20 as bereft of intelligence. Kamaistaistai rityajnana prapadyante naradamaha tam tam niyamamastaya prakritya niyataksvaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Conditioned souls are generally bereft of intelligence because of profound desires for sense gratification. They do not know what benedictions to ask. Therefore, non-devotees are advised in the Shastras to worship various demigods to achieve material benefits. For example, if one wants a beautiful wife, he is advised to worship Uma, or goddess Durga. If one wants to be cured of a disease, he is advised to worship the sun god. All requests for benedictions from the demigods, however, are due to material lust. The benedictions will be finished at the end of the cosmic manifestation, along with all those who bestow them. If one approaches Lord Vishnu for benedictions, the Lord will give him a benediction that will help him return home, back to Godhead. This is also confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham saradayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upabayanti te. Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna instructs a devotee who constantly engages in his service how to approach him at the end of his material body. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo viti tatpataha chaktva deham punar janma naitimam eti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is the benediction of Lord Vishnu, Krishna. After giving up his body, a devotee returns home, back to Godhead. A devotee may foolishly ask for material benedictions, but Lord Krishna does not give him such benedictions, despite the devotee's prayers. Therefore, people who are very attached to material life do not generally become devotees of Krishna or Vishnu. Instead, they become devotees of the demigods. Kamaistaista rityana prapadyante nirevata. The benedictions of the demigods, however, are condemned in Bhagavad Gita. Antavat tupalam tesham tadbhavat yalpamedasam. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. A non-Vaishnava, or one who is not engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is considered a fool with a small quantity of brain substance.
O Bhagavan, Indra, all good fortune unto you. I advise you to approach the exalted saint Dadansha, Dadichi. He has become very accomplished in knowledge, vows and austerities, and his body is very strong. Go ask him for his body without delay. Purport: everyone in this material world, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, is eager to keep his body comfortable. A pure devotee may also be comfortable, but he is not eager for such a benediction. Since Bhagavan, the king of heaven, still aspired for a comfortable bodily situation, Lord Vishnu advised him to ask Dadansha for his body, which was very strong due to his knowledge, vows, and austerity. That saintly Dadansha, who is also known as Dadichi, personally assimilated the spiritual science and then delivered it to the Ashwini Kumaras. It is said that Dadansha gave them mantras through the head of a horse. Therefore, the mantras are called Ashvashira. After obtaining the mantras of spiritual science from Dadichi, the Ashwini Kumaras became Jivan Mukta, liberated even in this life. Purport: the following story is narrated by many acharyas in their commentaries. And now, we'd like complete silence, please. Go right ahead.
Nishamyarthavanang daksham pravargya brahmavidyayoho tadanchang samuphagamyatam uchatur atashvenao bhagavandehinao vidyam iti shrutva sachapravit karmani avastito tyaham paschad vakshyami gachchatam tayor nigatayor eva shakra agatyatam munim uvacha bishajor vidyang ma vadir ashvinor mune yadi madvakyam ullankhya praveshi sahasaivate shiraschandyang na sandeha ityutva sayayav harihi indre gate tatapyetya nasatyavu chaturdvajam tanmukhad indragatitang shutva tavu chatuhu punah avang tava shirash chitva purvam ashvasya mastakam santasyavastato bruhitena vidyang chanao dvaja tasmin indrena sanchanne punah santaya mastakam Nijang te dakshinang dattva gamishyavo gitagatam etach chutva tadovacha tatyan atharvanas tayoho pravargyam brahmavidyang cha satkruto satishankitah.
The great Saint Dadichi had perfect knowledge of how to perform fruitive activities, and he had advanced spiritual knowledge as well. Knowing this, the Ashwini Kumaras once approached him and begged him to instruct them in spiritual science, Brahmavidya. Dadichi Muni replied, I am now engaged in arranging sacrifices for fruitive activities. Come back sometime later. When the Ashwini Kumaras left, Indra, the king of heaven, approached Dadichi and said, My dear Muni, the Ashwini Kumaras are only physicians. Please do not instruct them in spiritual science. If you impart the spiritual science to them despite my warning, I shall punish you by cutting off your head. After warning Dadichi in this way, Indra returned to heaven. The Ashwini Kumaras, who understood Indra's desires, returned and begged Dadichi for Brahma Vidya. When the great saint Dadichi informed them of Indra's threat, the Ashwini Kumaras replied, Let us first cut off your head and replace it with the head of a horse. you can instruct Brahmavidya through the horse's head, and when Indra returns and cuts off that head, we shall reward you and restore your original head. Since Dadichi had promised to impart Brahmavidya to the Ashwini Kumaras, he agreed to their proposal. Therefore, because Dadichi imparted Brahmavidya through the mouth of a horse, this Brahmavidya is also known as Ashvashira. That's some doctor, too. 53. Dadancha's invincible protective. You sure you're going to put it back on right? Dadancha's invincible protective covering, known as the Narayana Kavacha, was given to Twashta, who delivered it to his son Vishwarup, from whom you have received it. Because of this, Narayana Kavacha, Dadichi's body is now very strong. You should therefore beg him for his body. When the Ashwini Kumaras beg for Dadancha's body on your behalf, he will surely give it because of affection. Do not doubt this, for Dadancha is very experienced in religious understanding. When Dadancha awards you his body, Vishvakarma will prepare a thunderbolt from his bones. This thunderbolt will certainly kill Vritrasura because it will be invested with my power. When Vritrasura is killed because of my spiritual strength, you will regain your strength, weapons, and wealth. Thus, there will be all good fortune for all of you. Although Vritrasura can destroy all the three worlds, do not fear that he will harm you. He is also a devotee and will never be envious of you. Purport. A devotee of the Lord is never envious of anyone, what to speak of other devotees. As revealed later, Vritrasura was also a devotee. Therefore, he was not expected to be envious of the demigods. Indeed, of his own accord, he would try to benefit the demigods. A devotee does not hesitate to give up his own body for a better cause. Chanakya Pandit said, San nimite varam tyago vinashe niyate sati. After all one's material possessions, including his body, will be destroyed in due course of time. Therefore, if the body and other possessions can be utilized for a better cause, a devotee never hesitates to give up even his own body. Because Lord Vishnu wanted to save the demigods, Vritrasura, even though able to swallow the three worlds, would agree to be killed by the demigods. For a devotee, there is no difference between living and dying, because in this life a devotee engages in devotional service, and after giving up his body, he engages in the same service in the spiritual world. His devotional service is never hindered. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 9th chapter, 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled, 9th chapter, Appearance of the Demon Vritrasura. Bravo. Bravissimo. Sadhu, sadhu. We'll take a few reflections. Anything you heard that stuck with you? Yes, Prabhu.
I have a question. So does that mean someone can approach a demigod for whatever material opulence they want, and they could be granted whatever that material desire may be, even if it works against the goals that Krishna has for the devotee? In other words, if it's a material benefit and it might hinder them from returning to Godhead in some way, the demigods can grant that?
They sometimes do because they're less intelligent.
Who's less intelligent?
But generally, let me just
People?
Yeah, because and the demigods also. The demigods are agents of Krishna, and they generally give benedictions what they're asked for. They don't have the same intelligence as Krishna does to not give some material benediction, or if they give it, they don't have the power to give it in such a way that the person won't go back again for another material benediction, but rather will learn from it and come to him for pure devotional service. That's one of the differences between a demigod and
What strikes me very much is that about Indra, he's pretty much intense manager because he's cutting heads of Vishwarupa and then the DT. And
Little intense, huh?
Very intense. And my question is that is it the same Indra we are talking about, or is it just different Indras of different yugas? And he's devotee also, and he can get away with all this.
Indra's a post, so it could be different Indras at different times.
Means the post itself.
It's a post itself. It's not always the same living entity. Yes, Prabhu. Pretty entangling. Just like in the Hawaii SKCON, it was well known that people couldn't remain very long as temple president there. Average time was about 6 months or something. Yes, Prabhu.
Earlier in the chapter, we see Indra decapitates the Brahmin.
Except for now, there's pure devotee, and it's okay.
And he gets the reaction of killing a Brahmin. Are there different gradations of what is considered Brahmahatya? I've heard from one Brajvasi Brahmin that Brahmahatya means if you disturb a Brahmin, if you upset a Brahmin and make him cry, you steal from a Brahmin, etc.
Well, one thing we learned from this story is all the sages told Indra that there'd be no problem killing Vritrasura. And then he killed him, and then there was a problem. So better Vishwarup. So better to is Vishwarup? Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. But later they'll tell him that about killing him, Vritrasura, that you won't get any reaction. Don't worry about it. But right after he kills him, he gets a reaction. So I don't believe what people tell you. Just be really careful.
And Brahmanas just walked away.
Yeah, they just walked away like, we didn't see anything.
And the second question was that, so he's offering oblations, and then he offers oblations to Vishnu. He offers oblations to Vishnu, and then offers some for the demons, and that's why Indra kills him.
Yeah, that's right.
So demons are barred from worshipping Vishnu?
No, he was just ticked off because Indra felt that if Vishwarup, see, he was already warned ahead of time. I mean, I'm just saying stuff that you already know, but he was warned ahead of time when they took him on as a priest. When they hired him as a priest, they were warned that he was going to favor the demigods and the demons, so you're going to have to tolerate that in order to get a guru back. He already lost one guru, and now you got to get another one. But this one, you're going to have to tolerate a little bit because he likes the demons and the demigods. So then when he was doing some yajna, he was offering oblations, and then Indra heard him offering oblations. Some of them were going to the demons. So he got fearful because he thought, well, it's going to empower the demons. He was envious. And so he didn't think too carefully, and he chopped his heads off. Yes, Prabhu?
I just a comment in regards to Matt's question and the theme of how the Lord reciprocates with the body. And I think it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur who explains that sometimes the Lord is compared to a kalpavriksha, like a desire tree. But he says that this comparison is imperfect, because the kalpavriksha will give any desire that the person who asks for a desire wants, even though it may be, like not good for him. But Krishna will only award the desire which is actually going to be beneficial for the person. And he says that the kalpavriksha will not become attached to the person who asks for the desire, but Krishna will become very attached to that person, to his enemy of the person who approaches Krishna is Krishna's enemy as well. And anyway, in this way he explains how Krishna is much more personal, and he's always acting for the welfare of the body.
One other small point Krishna mentions in the Gita is when people ask benedictions from the demigods, he says, I'm the one who is within the heart of the asker, making his faith steady in that demigod. And not only that, he said, when the demigod gives something, Krishna says that I'm the one supplying all the facility for him to give it in the first place. So he says, if you know this, then why would you go to any demigods? It's an evolution. Any other points? Yes, Prabhu.
Like what you just said about the demigods, Krishna is the one who's actually giving the benedictions. I thought it was really interesting and eye-opening to hear that the demigods think that they're independent gods and that they're very powerful and that they're the controllers and enjoyers. But then they're in this position, this like position of suffering, and then they're remembering, oh yeah, we have, Krishna, we have to go to Krishna for help. And I thought it was good to remind us that, we get proud of our own ability and we think that I'm the one doing this, but ultimately it's just the whole material world, even the demigods, everything, it's all just a big stage production for the souls to be able to think that they're the controller and the enjoyer.
Well done. Anybody else? Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna, I like the point where it was said that the demigods was praying to Krishna that the people who read the scriptures in order to reach some conclusions, as a matter of mental speculation, to reach some it's contamination. It is a contamination to reach some conclusion, unless it should be revealed. I think there was a part which said that it is revealed over the time. But if we try to read the scriptures just to reach to some mental conclusion, they don't reach the actual conclusion. They still keep on speculating. So I like that point. It was mentioned somewhere. I don't remember the actual verse.
Yeah.
And in the same lines, it was mentioned that so Indra actually cursed so because Indra gave 1/4 of his Brahmahatya curse to water, that there is bubbles and form in the water, we should not accept it. So I was just connecting it to nectar of instruction, where it is said that the water of the Ganges, it has in times of rainy season, it has froth, it has bubbles in it. But a devotee who knows the value of Ganges, they still take dip in the Ganges. Yeah, so I was just thinking that why
so no more LaCroix. That's that bubbly drink.
Now I understand why they don't take the bubbles.
No more bubbly drinks. No more maple syrup or bubbly drinks. No Campa-Cola. Okay.
I had a question from one of the lines in the purport.
Yes.
It said that fear results from being absorbed in duality, and then it says, when one is in knowledge of duality, one knows both fear and bliss.
He knows both fear and bliss.
Yeah.
When he's in knowledge of reality, he knows both fear and bliss. Well, I mean, just first thing that comes to my mind is just to quote the verse that it comes from. Payam dvitiya binibeshita syad ishada petasya viparya yosmiti tanmayatam buddha abhajatam bhaktaika yesham gurudevatatma, which says, what the first line just said was Bhayam syat. Fear arises when there's dvitiya, when there's a conception that there's something else besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead in anything. But when one comes into knowledge, he can see both sides. Vidyam chayas tadvedo bhayam saha avidyayam ratum tirtva vidyayam ratum ashrite. Only one who can know the process of nescience of that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. And so, if one comes to full knowledge, then he sees what fear is. It's the shadow. and that he's aware of the fact that it's a shadow, and therefore he knows what it is, and he's no longer afraid of it. Atma upamyena sarvatya samam pashyati arjuna sukham va yadiva dukham sa yogi paramo mataha.
Yogi Paramamata, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. What verse is that? 632.
Roku Sanjuni.
Sadukam, no. Sadukam
Sukham va
yadiva dukam sadabam. Sayogi paramo mataha. Yeah. It means that a person who's actually, just can you read it?
The translation? Yeah. This is the quality of Vijayabhushan, but he is the perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhupada. Continuing the reading, we're at chapter 10, Battle between the Demigods and Vritrasura. For those of you who like battles, stay seated. We're about to go into a heavy battle like you've never heard before. Are you prepared for this? Yes. Okay, here we go. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of the onlooking demigods. O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Dadichi, the son of Atarva. He was very liberal, and when they begged him to give them his body, he at once partially agreed. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? In the material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body. Struggling to keep his body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Purport. It is said, Atmanam sarvato rakshet tato dharmam tato dhanam. One must protect his body by all means. Then he may protect his religious principles and thereafter his possessions. This is the natural desire of all living entities. No one wants to give up his body unless it is forcibly given away. Oh, okay. It's changed. But you can't change anything. There is a change. Given away, forcibly taken away. It's there. Taken rather than given. If we can't forcibly give something, it's forcibly given away.
No one wants to give up his body unless it is forcibly taken away.
Forcibly given away. Can't change it. Even though the demigods said that they were demanding Dadichi's body for their benefit in accordance with the order of Lord Vishnu, Dadichi superficially refused to give them his body. The demigods replied, O exalted Brahmana, pious persons like you, whose activities are praiseworthy, are very kind and affectionate to people in general. What can't such pious souls give for the benefit of others? They can give everything, including their bodies. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 6. Those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pain. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, he who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. Even the demons understand that Jarasandha, like he was like that, gave charity. Purport. Hey, this works. I like this. It's too much. I like it too much. This verse describes two people, one who gives charity and one who begs for it. A beggar should not ask charity from a person who is in difficulty. Similarly, one who is able to give charity should not deny a beggar. These are the moral instructions of the Shastra. Chanakya Pandit says, Sannimite badam tyago ninashe niyate sati. Everything within this material world will be destroyed, and therefore one should use everything for good purposes. If one is advanced in knowledge, he must always be prepared to sacrifice anything for a better cause. At the present moment, the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of a godless civilization. The Krishna consciousness movement needs many exalted, learned persons who will sacrifice their lives to revive God consciousness throughout the world. We therefore invite all men and women advanced in knowledge to join the Krishna consciousness movement and sacrifice their lives for the great cause of reviving the God consciousness of human society. Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Text 7. The great sage Dadichi said, "Just to hear from you about religious principles, I refused to offer my body at your request. Now, although my body is extremely dear to me, I must give it up for your better purposes, since I know that it will leave me today or tomorrow." Text 8. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles or eternal glory is certainly pitied even by the immovable beings. Purport. In this regard, a very exalted example was set by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaktva sudush jaja surep sitaraja lakshmim dharmishta arya bachasa yad angaranyam maya mrigam tayidep sitam anbahadavad vande mahapurusha charanara vindam.
We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his householder life, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls who are put into illusion by material energy. To accept sannyas means to commit civil suicide, but sannyas is compulsory, at least for every brahmana, every first-class human being. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very young and beautiful wife and a very affectionate mother. Indeed, the affectionate dealings of his family members were so pleasing that even the demigods could not expect such happiness at home. Nevertheless, for the deliverance of all the fallen souls of the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and left home when he was only 24 years old. He lived a very strict life as a sannyasi, refusing all bodily comforts. Similarly, his disciples, the 6 Goswamis, were ministers who held exalted positions in society, but they also left everything to join the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srinivasacharya says, Chaktva tur mamashesha matalapati shrenem sada tuchabat bhutvadina ganesha karunaya kopina kantashito. These Goswamis left their very comfortable lives as ministers, zamindars, and learned scholars to joined Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, just to show mercy to the fallen souls of the world. Dina Ganeshakau Karunaya. Accepting very humble lives as mendicants, wearing no more than loincloths and torn quilts, Kopina Kanta, they lived in Vrindavan and followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order to excavate Vrindavan's lost glories. Similarly, everyone else with a materially comfortable condition in this world should join the Krishna consciousness movement to elevate the fallen souls. The words Bhuta Dayaya Mayamrigam Dayita Yepsitam and Dina Ganesha Kau Kaduniya all convey the same sense. These are very significant words for those interested in elevating human society to a proper understanding of life. One should join the Krishna consciousness movement, following the examples of such great personalities as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, and before them the great sage Dadichi. Instead of wasting one's life for temporary bodily comforts, one should always be prepared to give up one's life for better causes. After all, the body will be destroyed. Therefore, one should sacrifice it for the glory of distributing religious principles throughout the world. Text 9. Question? It's not on.
Sannyas means civil suicide. So, can maybe one would commit civil suicide, and that is tantamount to taking sannyas, or no?
Huh? What?
If one were to commit civil suicide, is that because it said taking sannyas means committing civil suicide? So are they comparable?
Nyas. Nyas means to properly put something in its proper place. Like when you put on tilak, it's a nyas. You put them in the right places. And sang means everything. Sannyas means one who knows how to put everything in its proper place. And that's the purpose of sannyas. That's what real renunciation means. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam vitate, etc.
What it means by civil suicide is it gives up direct connection to family, society, and the social structure of the society. He no longer has an identity in those fields. It doesn't mean that he commits suicide. Yeah, civil suicide means that he no longer, but like Prabhupada was a sannyasi, the strictest sannyasi, but he had to get a green card to go to the West, and he had to do all these things, he had to get a
He also
passport.
made a stipend for his family so
Yeah.
that they were properly taken care of. Even to this day, there's a portion goes from the VBT to take care of his.
Yeah. So we should always remember this, that the Goswamis had a particular service to do for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And, those of us who have taken sannyas and traveled around this planet, trying to, and it says in Gita, anashita karma palam, karyam karma karotya, sa sannyasi chiyogicha, na niragnir nachakriya. The real sannyas means that one who gives up attachment for the fruits of his labor. If one gives up entirely the attachment for the fruits of his labor, even if he's a factory worker, Prabhupada said he becomes a sannyasi. That's real civil suicide. Means you give up all the fruits to Krishna. If one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. What a nice verse. Purport. Let me hear it again. If one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. Purport. One generally follows different types of religious principles or performs various occupational duties according to the body given to him by the modes of material nature. In this verse, however, real religious principles are explained. Everyone should be unhappy to see others in distress and happy to see others happy. Atmavat sarvabhuteshu. One should feel the happiness and distress of others as his own. It is on this basis that the Buddhist religious principle of nonviolence, ahimsa parama dharma, is established. We feel pain when someone disturbs us, and therefore we should not inflict pain upon other living beings. Lord Buddha's mission was to stop unnecessary animal killing, and therefore he preached that the greatest religious principle is nonviolence. One cannot continue killing animals and at the same time be a religious man. That is the greatest hypocrisy. Jesus Christ said, "Do not kill," but hypocrites nevertheless maintain thousands of slaughterhouses while posing as Christians. Such hypocrisy is condemned in this verse. One should be happy to see others happy, and one should be unhappy to see others unhappy. This is the principle to be followed. Unfortunately, at the present moment, so-called philanthropists and humanitarians advocate the happiness of humanity at the cost of the lives of poor animals. That is not recommended herein. This verse clearly says that one should be compassionate to all living entities. Regardless of whether human, animal, tree, or plant, all living entities are sons of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvajoneshu konteya murtayak sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahanyonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. The different forms of these living entities are only their external dresses. Every living being is actually a spirit soul, a part and parcel of God. Therefore, one should not favor only one kind of living being. A Vaishnava sees all living entities as part and parcel of God. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 5:18 and 1854, Vidyavanaya sampane brahmane gavihastani shuni chaiva chapake cha panditak Samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of 518 and 1854. That's what? Oh, I see. Thank you. Thank you. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. Brahmabhutak prasanatma nashochati nakankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktam labate param. See, that's a little editing. I'm sorry, I'm an editor. It can't. It should have 18, because it has 18 and 54, and then down in this verse it says 54. You get my point? And if it just said 8, 5, yeah, it's a fault of redundancy. Eh? Bhavani, okay. One who is transcendently situated at once realizes Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally exposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotion to serve unto me. Just to let you know that I can do it, if I have to. One who is transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. See how much nicer that is? A Vaishnava, therefore, is truly a perfect person because he laments to see others unhappy and feels joy at seeing others happy. A Vaishnava is paradukha dukhi. He is always unhappy to see the conditioned souls in an unhappy state of materialism. Therefore, a Vaishnava is always busy preaching Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Text 10. This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. Purport. Similar advice is also given in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-35. Etavaj janma sapalyam dehinam iyadehishu pranayar artayar vidavacha shreya achanama sada. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. This is the mission of life. One's own body and the bodies of his friends and relatives, as well as one's own riches and everything else one has, should be engaged for the benefit of others. This is the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 941. Bharata bhumite hoila manushya janmajar, janma sartatakari karapada upakar. One who has taken birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatavarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. The word upakuryat means para upakar, helping others. Of course, in human society, there are many instructions to help others. Of course, in human society, there are many institutions to help others, but because philanthropists do not know how to help others, their propensity for philanthropy is ineffectual. They do not know the ultimate goal of life, Shreya Acharanam, which is to please the Supreme Lord. If all philanthropic and humanitarian activities were directed toward achieving the ultimate goal of life, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would all be perfect. Humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. Please repeat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Nothing. You make money. No. Humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. Krishna must be brought to the center of all our activities. Otherwise, no activity will have value.
That brings us to the cow break. We'll be back here. At we'll be back here at 5:29 and 32 seconds. Hare Krishna.